It was the middle of the night, and the family had gotten the news that baby wasn't going to make it. And I remember taking the stairs up purposely to take a little bit more time to get up to the labor and delivery floor, thinking through my head, what am I going to say to these people? Then getting the news, the doctor comes in and gives the news that she's going to need to go into labor to have the fetus who had already passed away. And the wife, I remember emotionally, was somewhat numb to everything, not a lot of crying. And really my focus had shifted because I think mom was kind of in the tunnel from just an emotional. And so my emotional focus kind of shifted to dad, who was actually angry, very angry. They have the birth, and the anger comes out even more, and dad ends up putting a hole in the wall, and security is called, and I asked security, please don't come in. You need to understand what's happened. But that was by far the most impactful, not only because it was my first reproductive loss experience with a family, but also because there was just so much emotion in it. So,
in the time when I was told that my baby probably wouldn't make it back in the fall several years ago, I remember seeing a sunset and just weeping, knowing my baby probably wouldn't see sunsets.
In the emergency room, it's our worst day, right? Quite possibly the worst day of our life. So when we're equipping our healthcare professionals with the tools needed to be able to take good care of their patients, we can show them compassion, which change. I mean, you can give the same care, right? This was your treatment, this was your surgery, but when it's done with compassion, it's life-changing and can change how someone perceives their life from that point on.
Hello, and welcome to our 2023 virtual reception. I'm so glad that you could join us. My name is Michaeline Friedenberg, and I'm the President and CEO of the Institute of Reproductive Grief Care, coming to you from our national headquarters here in San Diego. Before we dive in, I'd like to offer a special thank you to all of our generous sponsors for this event. You can see them right now in the chat section. And speaking of the chat feature, we love your participation. If you haven't already, please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you are joining us from. I also encourage you to comment in real time throughout the next 30 minutes. So why are we here today? We are here because reproductive loss is much more common than people believe. 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. And this is just one type of reproductive loss. There are over 900,000 abortions every year in the United States. 2.4 million fetal and neonatal deaths occur in the perinatal period in the US alone, 4 times more than the annual number of deaths from cancer. And each of these losses impacts the couple, their family members, and friends. These numbers are staggering, and they don't even include infertility, which carries its own repeated emotional pain. You can help those who often struggle silently and alone. Your donation can help us improve care for those facing reproductive loss. Your donation of any amount can have a bigger impact than you know. A generous supporter has agreed to match your donations tonight, dollar for dollar, up to $1 million. Even better, we've already received pledges for $600,000. So if we can raise $400,000 tonight, we will have received $2 million to help those who grieve after reproductive loss. If you're ready to give now, you have 2 options. You can choose to make a pledge through chat, and this year we also offer the option to text. Simply text GIVE to 33777 to be directed to our donation page. We'll keep you updated on the total of donations and pledges throughout our time together. So I want to give a big thank you to everyone who's already donated and to all of you who will choose to donate or pledge tonight. We couldn't do it without you. Let me share a few words about what we do before we dive in. The Institute of Reproductive Grief Care is the global expert. We offer education, research, expertise, and support after reproductive loss. We bring comfort and hope to millions who are suffering, often alone and in silence. We're at the forefront of creating impartial and impactful research, and we offer healing resources directly to those who are impacted. Now that you know who we are and why we're here, I'd like to expand on this year's theme, Igniting Compassion in Emergency Care. We were founded in 2008, so we've spent the past 15 years helping people who struggle through the pain and grief of reproductive loss. We recognize the critical importance of educating medical teams on reproductive grief care so that they're prepared in the moments and days that follow a reproductive loss. Most reproductive losses occur in the presence of medical staff. In fact, busy emergency departments have reported an average of 5 pregnancy losses each and every day. Doctors can take up to 14 years to train in providing medical care, but 0 instruction time is dedicated to providing empathy during a reproductive loss. We recognize this gap and we're determined to fill it. We started by becoming accredited to educate healthcare professionals, including nurses, therapists, and social workers. Then we partnered with some of the smartest people from some of the most esteemed healthcare organizations and academic institutions in the country. These are experts who recognize this need and are excited to work with us to fill it. Although we just created our emergency department program in 2021, it is already very successful. We're creating sweeping change within large, well-known healthcare organizations, change that many thought was impossible. We are reaching and helping thousands upon thousands of people, a reach that we've never had before. The need for what we do is huge. No one else is doing it. This is revolutionary and transformative. We think our emergency department program is achieving amazing transformative change. But you don't have to take my word for it. We're excited to have 3 guest speakers share their thoughts. All 3 guests have completed our intensive advanced provider course. What that means is that each of our guests has been specially trained by us to provide reproductive grief care, and even more, they are trained to be leaders in spreading reproductive grief care across their healthcare systems. This is our opportunity to show you how valuable their work is, and through them, how important our work is.
This was actually her 4th loss. And this was the furthest that she had gone in the pregnancy. And as soon as she told me that, it totally took the wind right out of my sail. And it was a very humanistic moment sitting in the lobby with this woman who's a stranger. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't know if I have the words for you right now. And so we just sat kind of in silence. I said, I'm just going to sit here with you until we get you a room, if that's okay. Because I see that you told me that your husband's not showing up, and I just want you to know that you don't have to be alone in this. This was probably maybe a month to 2 months after we had taken the course. And I think the most beautiful aspect is that a lot of the other people I work with who took the course work in the emergency department. And so there really was this team aspect as well, where even from the person who checked them in, they kind of knew certain words and ideas. And so what that did is that actually triggered me getting a phone call, our social, before the person even was brought back to the room.
So working with patients who've experienced loss after going through the training, I found that I had more confidence and knew more questions to ask. Just being able to, again, continue to have that conversation about grief, the normalization, and not in a way that's saying, this is normal, you shouldn't have these feelings, but giving the safe space to talk about it if wanted.
As you can imagine, emergency departments are chaotic, with staff carrying extreme workloads. Through our emergency department program, we're educating healthcare systems to tap into their own resources that they often already have, such as chaplains and social workers, to lighten the load of their emergency department staff while better helping patients facing reproductive loss. Without us, healthcare professionals unwittingly create more trauma for their patients and their families. Without us, patients leave medical facilities to miscarry at home without instruction or appropriate support resources. Without us, patients are not being given permission to grieve, and healthcare professionals are not given the tools to manage their own emotions. We must and are changing this.
Reproductive grief is something that I feel all too acquainted with. I got pregnant. I had symptoms before I even tested positive. And I was pregnant, and we told family, we got our son a big brother shirt, like we fully embraced it. Everyone was so excited. And I had a doctor that I had never met before who told me that, my baby had ultimately died. When people miscarry, you deal with it initially and then people forget. And then you, as the person who has experienced the loss, you're still grieving and you're still going through the motions, but most people have forgotten and moved on. And my continued grieving is not acknowledged. I think now, after the 4 miscarriages I've had, I don't have the emotional stamina to risk another loss. I don't have the time to spend worrying about a pregnancy and having the anxiety and the fear I had during both my pregnancies. Loss after having children is harder. It was harder for me to deal with my losses because I could look at them and see what I was losing. And in previous miscarriages, you don't know what you don't know. But looking at them and seeing them and thinking, oh, I lost one of these, that became harder.
During the Institute's training, the story that kept coming to mind is my mom, goodness, was more than 50 years ago, had a healthy pregnancy and delivered in a very small hospital. And what should have been a healthy boy ended up a baby that died during birth. It wasn't a great situation. It was not handled with care and compassion. And of course, there was not the social media, there wasn't anyone knowing. So my mom would go to the store and people would ask how the baby was. Did you have a boy or a girl? And it was really devastating for her. And there were not the resources available for someone, you should see a therapist. That wasn't an option. And one thing that comes to mind for me too, in thinking of the training at the Institute, was sometimes we forget about these partners. And there is a partner involved that also has this loss. And so my dad didn't get the care he needed either. And it was a real tragedy for them. So that would have been my oldest brother. And it changed her course of trusting care and took a lot of the blame, which unfortunately I think a lot of our women tend to take a lot of blame. And if I would have done this, could have I done this differently? And then she went on to have 2 healthy children and then experienced a miscarriage. And this story really came to mind for me in the training. She was bleeding and sat on towels to get to the hospital, bleeding. And she had someone approach her and said, next time this happens, don't bring the towels. So you think of that and you think, okay, that's absolutely not compassionate. In fact, it's really hurtful. Here's someone experiencing a huge loss, losing their child, and they're being told next time, don't bring the towels, and that someone was a nuisance. So I thought, thank God we're changing healthcare, and this should never be anyone's experience again. And so I think everything that the Institute is doing is to help prevent those situations from happening and to help someone have, on that worst day, someone who's showing them compassion and care.
You can help those who struggle through this unique pain. Your donations can help us improve care for those facing reproductive loss. Your donation of any amount can have a bigger impact than you know. A generous supporter has agreed to match your donations tonight, dollar for dollar, up to $1 million. Even better, we've already received pledges for $600,000. So if we can raise $400,000 tonight, we will have reached $2 million to help those who grieve after reproductive loss. Your donation of any amount can have a huge impact. Your $1,000 donation will train 2 professionals to become advanced providers, like our guests. $2,500 will help to create customized discharge paperwork for patients so that they are sent home with the help and resources they need after loss. $10,000 will certify a new instructor to train other healthcare providers. Your generosity will help memorialize and honor those touched by reproductive loss, especially during Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. If you're ready to give now, simply text the word GIVE to the number on your screen, and it will take you directly to our donation page, or make a pledge through chat. We'll continue to keep you updated as we close in on our goal throughout our time together. Thank you for your help.
My wife had actually told me afterwards that she was pregnant, but the baby had miscarried fairly quickly. And it's something that I kind of just brushed off at first because I thought she doesn't seem too impacted. And even to this day, we haven't had a ton of conversations about it. As we've gotten further into life and now that we do have a child, I think we've felt more comfortable now talking about that, me asking kind of the right questions. Because again, before really taking the Institute's training program, I didn't really know too much about this. But I remember feeling this loss, but also like I wasn't almost allowed to, because it had been so quick of a loss. It had only been a few weeks. And so it was one of these moments where I felt like, well, why am I feeling sad? Even with the birth of our daughter, she was in the NICU for almost a month when she was born, and she is healthy now. But I remember when my wife had a C-section with our daughter, sorry, I thought it was over. I thought that because we were getting nothing but bad news, brain bleeds and this and that, even in the midst of having a healthy 3-year-old now, almost 4, there's a part of me that says, like, this is also a part of your loss, right? Even if she did live and is healthy, like, you experienced this. We didn't know. We didn't know that she was going to make it out. Every doctor, except the final doctor she had, said, like, we don't know. Like, she stopped breathing. She's not gaining weight. She didn't have a blood sugar when she was born. So it's these, it feels weird to talk about it because she is healthy. And I know that there's so many people who never got the experiences that we get to experience every day with our daughter now.
Our emergency department program is our focus today. This is why our theme this year is Igniting Compassion in Emergency Care. We are proud to say that our emergency program was the fastest growing of all of our programs. And even though it's a young program, it's already had a huge impact. Let's hear from our guests about why we created the emergency department program.
Yeah, I think that a training like the one the Institute offers is incredibly helpful for ER clinicians because we are taught to be experts in our field. Anatomy, physiology, what to do when someone is actively dying. That's what we're good at. That's what we're trained for. There's not a lot of training for sensitive conversations. And I would say that some of the people I work with are some of the people who would be most uncomfortable having these conversations, being a part of these intimate moments of loss, of grief, of watching someone's life fall apart in front of us. Those are things that are really, really hard. It's hard for us in the moment, and I think it's often hard for us later on.
The emergency room is most people's worst day, right? And so they're meeting us, they're coming in on not their best day, in fact, quite often their worst day. Yet for people who, when we work in the emergency room, this is our everyday life, our job, we have our codes, we have our jargon, and we have a fast pace. And emergency room care, it's incredibly important to be able to remind people to pause for care and to remember who we're working with. And remember, this is a really hard day for this person, and their needs are going to go way beyond their physical needs. And how do we care for them as a whole person, looking at what they're going through, their emotional needs, and their overall well-being.
I can think of times when, not knowing better, I did say the wrong thing because no one ever taught me the right thing. So you kind of say what you think makes most sense. Like, you can try again. Like, you mean it with the best intention, and it's received as dismissive and belittling, and all you're trying to do is be helpful, but you're going about it in the wrong way. So being empowered to have better interactions in these situations, I think, is invaluable to ER and any healthcare provider.
And I think that if you have the idea to be willing to be vulnerable and have these types of conversations, whether they've impacted you or whether now someone's coming to you and sharing, and now you have kind of the Institute in your back pocket to say, hey, let me tell you about this place, I think you use it to the fullest ability, right? So.
And I think that the Institute offers a way to support people and have compassion on these people without bearing their grief in the same way that the patient experiences the grief. And it allows me to still walk alongside them in their grief and show empathy and show compassion while not taking it home with me.
We hear stories every day about the emotional impact of these losses and how they impact patients and healthcare professionals alike. It became critical to partner with major hospitals and healthcare organizations to create the widespread transformation that is needed to attend to the emotional and grief aspects of reproductive loss. Let's hear about it from their perspective.
The language that we use is so important working with our patients. So rather than, I'm sorry for your fetal demise, which does not offer sensitivity, if someone is saying, I've just lost my baby, we are going to continue to use that language. It's your baby. It can be incredibly insensitive to use the medical jargon. And so that was confirmed for me in the training as well.
I think one thing that we had never really delved into as ER nurses was what do you do with remains?
The huge portion that is worth our time of coming to the Institute and doing this training was that at least everyone that I talked with, we left with a sense that there's more to the job than we ever realized, right? We can do our jobs knowing how to enter into a really hard topic, a really vulnerable topic, a topic that I think a lot of people just want to kind of brush under the rug and say, it's just a part of life, right? It just happens. In a high, fast-paced environment like the emergency department, it brings a piece of the human person back.
As mentioned, The ripple effect of this education is unprecedented. In just one class, we educated 80 OBGYN physicians on reproductive grief care. Each doctor sees an average of 2,300 patients in their career. So that's as many as 184,000 patients, along with their families and loved ones, who will be helped because of our reproductive grief care education. In another class, we met a woman who had lost 2 children more than 50 years ago. Empathy in her care was entirely absent from her experience, causing her trauma that she remembers to this day. She's decided to take an active role in educating her community. Now she is the change that she wants to create. So now you can see the impact of just one member of our team providing reproductive grief care education to healthcare professionals. With each hospital program costing over $100,000, we need your help to make this happen. So now is a good time to show how much you care. Text your donation of any amount at the number below or simply pledge in the chat. $10,000 will certify a new instructor to train healthcare providers. $5,000 will coach a shift ambassador within the emergency department so that they can spread our education and resources to their entire team. $25,000 can create the gap analysis that healthcare systems require to begin the program. On behalf of the millions who often struggle after reproductive loss, I want to express my appreciation for your support. You will never realize how many people you are helping.
I would say that every hospital emergency department needs to put their people through this. I didn't know what to expect going in. I had my thoughts, I had my ideas, and you guys blew them out of the water. My hope is that it continues to carry on, not just in our hospital setting, but hospitals across San Diego, hospitals across the United States, things like that.
I'm so excited to be able to share how we've been igniting compassion in emergency care. We are doing things that we've never done before, that no one has ever done before. More than 170,000 people have learned about our healing resources, and over 8,000 healthcare professionals took our courses just in the past year. We become a clearinghouse for research and a leading researcher ourselves in understanding and communicating about grief after reproductive loss. This includes our own research on a 5-question reproductive grief screening tool that we created in collaboration with the University of Texas Houston and IUPUI that we hope will one day be a part of every doctor's practice. When it comes to igniting compassionate care in the emergency department, we have accomplished more than we ever thought possible. But the truth is that we have just scratched the surface. We're in 10 hospitals now, which is great news, but there are 5,500 emergency departments in the US. We need your help to get into as many of them as possible. The more resources we have, the faster we can ensure that patients and their families are receiving the best whole person care after reproductive loss. The need is incredibly urgent, and we can't do it without you. Together, we're completely transforming what happens to patients who experience reproductive loss in the emergency department or in a doctor's office. We want to be in 25 hospitals in 2024 and at least 100 in 2026. And in 10 years, we want this to be the accepted standard of care so that in time, every emergency department in the country will transform their reproductive grief care practices. So this is a good time to remind you that your donation will be matched dollar for dollar tonight, up to $400,000. I want to thank everyone who has made a pledge so far. We appreciate your help so much.
So my hope and my expectation for the future of this institute is that we make a good thing better, that we provide continued great medical care that I already see happening in San Diego, and that we're able to better care for our patients. And I hope that people who receive reproductive loss are met with grace and compassion that can kick off a healthy grieving process.
I think the Institute has the opportunity to make a real long-term impact on healthcare in the sense that I think we're really trending towards whole person care. And we talk about this a lot, but some healthcare professionals weren't taught that in medical school, or it gets brushed over as we need to figure out how to do the surgeries. We need to figure out how to put an IV in. And the importance of seeing someone as their whole person and being compassionate can really change how healthcare functions, changes the person's experience for a scary hospital to a hospital where you feel cared for.
We are getting better. We're actively listening more when someone has something to say around the topic of reproductive loss. I think we still have a long way to go. And in the ways that culture still has a long way to go is that we need more places and spheres to be able to share that grief.
So I think probably many people in the audience have experienced their own loss and can relate to this and wish their story would have gone differently. And so I think it's an opportunity for stories to change in the future.
And that's my hope for the Institute, is that we as clinicians learn that we can be a bright spot in someone's terrible experience. So I think it's important to donate to the Institute because I believe that educating and empowering healthcare providers and community leaders leads to better care of patients experiencing a loss. And I believe that the moment you find out about a loss is the moment that can really set the direction for how you experience the grief, experience the healing. So I believe that education can be a fundamental change in how society really addresses reproductive losses.
Giving money is a bit of a no-brainer in the sense because I think about if I'm going to an emergency department situation for a reproductive loss situation, I would want my emergency department to have gone through this training. And the only way that's going to happen is through donations.
Not everyone can be a part of someone's terrible moment and a part of someone's grief process and healing process, but you can empower people who are there in those moments. And I think that matters.
You guys are absolutely this launching point for families to be able to experience kind of a healthy way of talking about a really hard subject.
Thank you again to our wonderful guests. They are bringing comfort and hope to patients in their darkest hours every day. And thank you to those of you who have donated and pledged. We are so appreciative of your help. We wouldn't be here without you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for bringing hope to a hurting world.